To the meeting of the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission, as I call the meeting to order, invite you to join with us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit through the chambers. To my left, you exit through the council chamber doors, turn left, walk down a flight of stairs, and out of the building. Or, the best way perhaps, is that they exit at the doors to the rear of the chambers. In either case, once you're outside of the building, please walk a safe distance away from the building. Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin,
Present.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Fakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Richard Suzak's here.
Okay, approval of minutes July 20th.
Mr. Chairman, these are the ones you tabled from the last time, and we hope that we've made the corrections you asked us to make. I think they mainly involved around making sure that each public hearing was recognized as a separate public hearing,
They were.
noting who was at the public hearing and who voted.
In the minutes?
Any additions, errors,
Yes.
omissions?
Go ahead, go.
One of my concerns is the motion, the third motion down on the first page. Who, we need to know who the person was that abstained, because I think that's important to note.
Oh, it is, yes.
The third motion down, who abstained from, because I think that to me, that would be important to know who abstained. And I believe it was me.
601
I think it
vote.
was Nick.
Was it me?
I think it was you.
It was on, it was somebody that was absent that meeting,
I know. I
on the June 1st
I think it
meeting.
was you.
Oh.
was I don't know if I was that good?
Who was absent June 1st? I know Nick did it one time, but,
been me.
It might have been me. It might have been.
well, then I have to research that.
Oh, no, you're right, roll call.
I might have been in the hospital.
Okay, Rich, you were here, Charlie Durin was here.
What have you got?
Okay,
What?
Rich was here for the 7th, the July 20th meeting. Charles Durin was here, Liz Ballard was here, Charlie Ladd was here, Mary Scott was here, Virginia Higley was here, Rich Suzak was here.
This
and
is the
Nick
June
Lefakis.
1st meeting?
But that's the July 20th.
I mean, never mind, I got the wrong one.
We're looking for the June 1st minute.
I think it was Nick.
All right,
Cancel
well,
that.
they'll have to research that and add that. That's all right.
That's a long time ago skit on Saturday Night Live. Never mind.
Any errors? Okay, Charlie, you
I
had
got a
some.
couple of spell checks, that's all. On page 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 lines up, should be as instead of ask. Lawrence introduced himself as well as Jackie. And page 17. Get that far ahead. Come on, you open. There it is. Paragraph 4. Should be, the last line of paragraph 4 should be much needed care rather than need care. And on page 18,
Can we stay on 17? Because there was
sure,
that third paragraph.
Uh-huh.
It should be who has partnered with Hartford Healthcare to bring a new healthcare experience.
oh, has, yeah,
Yeah, and then the 2 paragraphs down, it should be center, spelt wrong.
repeat.
Manny states that an important feature that faculty. All right, I can't read. Will bring an X-ray ability in center. That doesn't even make sense, so.
Last word on that line.
Yeah. Center specifically, it didn't make sense, so. Thank you. Thank you for helping me.
Okay.
Okay.
And on page 18, 5 paragraphs up,
Where are you, please?
page 18,
18.
5 paragraphs up,
I'm on page 18.
18.
Yes.
5 paragraphs.
Says, we'll have to modify the plans to avoid having he should be the applicant. 4 paragraphs up,
He is in there.
it should be the.
They're missing a T.
And then 4th one up is Chairman Duran, if any commissioner, he asked if any commissioner had anything further. On the bottom paragraph, should be was approved, not approve. That's it?
No.
Oh, for me, that's it.
Mary,
On the page 2, a clarification here, 4th paragraph up from the bottom. Says, whereas a public hearing was opened on April 20th, 2017, and closed on July 20th. I think it was open and closed on the same day, if I remember correctly. So, and this is under the
We had
resolution.
a correction on the
So,
date when we did that, too.
so make sure that, yeah. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I missed that one.
where? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be a long way away, yeah.
Long.
That would have been a long public hearing.
Oh, well.
Anything further, anyone? I had one on 24, and it's the 4th line up. It's just, instead of no, it should be any. I asked if there were any outside speakers for audio.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's all I had. Anyone else? All in favor as amended? Unanimous, 700. Okay,
Public participation.
yeah. At this point in the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we welcome comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield from anyone who's present, provided that you may not discuss any matter of business at this time that is already elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Last call to address the commission under those conditions. Hearing none, we have a special presentation by the Transit-Oriented Development Consultants. And if they'll come forward to the desk, I guess the mic is on, or make sure the red button is down. Oh,
Mr.
Peter-
Chairman, I think you know Peter Bryantton, and Peter's,
I haven't seen him in a long time. You ought
yeah,
to introduce
Peter's
himself.
going to
Yeah.
do a little introduction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know you know who I am, but for those people at home, my name is Peter Bryantton. I'm the Director of Community Development. And tonight we have with us Todd Poole from Forward Planning and Francisco Gomes from Fitzgerald Holiday. And the reason why these gentlemen are here tonight is the town is undertaking a transit-oriented development plan. And I passed out a little bit of information about what that plan is for. Just quickly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, the purpose of the Thompsonville Transit-Oriented Development Economic Strategy Project is to develop a master plan for redevelopment within the village of Thompsonville. with a focus towards more walkable and livable mixed-use community. I think most of you know over the past 16 plus years, the town's invested a considerable amount of time and money into planning for the revitalization of this community, particularly around Thompsonville. And we've done a lot of plans and we've done some infrastructure, but what we lack here is a master plan. And that's what this plan is going to do. We're going to take a lot of the parking studies and the economic feasibility studies and bring them together, go through, take out the best parts, and bring that into a master plan. Because I think we all agree that we're all kind of tired of planning. We want to see some action. And so the point of this economic strategy is really to have some goals and actionable items that we can take immediately off the shelf and start doing something with. The reason why we hired these gentlemen is because they understand that we as a community are kind of tired of planning. We need to do something. So both of them were hired because of their expertise in certain areas. Forward Planning is they specialize in economic analysis and market information, and Fitzgerald Holiday, they specialize in land use planning and zoning. And so we have brought these gentlemen here to say a few words, but in the future, they're going to be working with you and the Economic Development Commission to make sure that our town leaders have a hand in the future goals and recommendations that come out of these plans. And as I said, we can hit the ground running and start getting some action here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, let him say a few words, and then I think we'll go to Francisco, right?
I'll just say something first. What I asked the consultants to do is, rather than make a presentation tonight, is I pointed out to them that many of some of the folks sitting up there around the dais have been here for all of those plans that you've seen come and go, where others of you are more recent, but you all have ideas of your own. And quite frankly, I didn't want them to get too far down the road without hearing what your ideas were. So I saw this as an opportunity to find out perspectives that you particularly care deeply about, that you would like them to take into account as they go about their work, so that, we don't have a situation of, a few months down the road, you say, how the heck did you ever get to where you are? So with that, we'll go back. But I envision this as the first opportunity to start and for the consultants to hear the perspective of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Also, Roger, the commission would appreciate not taking too long a time, because we have possibly a lengthy meeting because of what's on the agenda.
You can go directly to your thoughts and whatever if you want to. I mean, we gave you I think pretty much what the TOD is about. Peter introduced these folks.
Let them go, but I just want to remind people we have quite a lengthy agenda possible. Go ahead.
Commission members, good evening. My name is Todd Poole with Forward Planning. We are land use economists, and we do specialize in economic and real estate analysis. I'll keep my remarks brief, given that your schedule is lengthy. As Peter mentioned, we were brought on in our role to focus on looking at economic opportunity and market receptivity. What can happen around the train station, particularly once the high-speed rail line is put in place. To this point, we have developed a draft market study that is still under review. by Peter and his team, and we expect to respond to questions and certainly share that document with all of you and answer questions that you may have. What does this all mean, and ultimately, what is the end game? The end game is basically for us to identify what are market supportable uses in both the near term and long term, as well as what is financially feasible. Part of our charge will also be to kind of put our developer's hat on and do financial modeling as if we were a developer looking to invest here. We do this for many of our clients. We did this a few years back for the city of Meriden on their high-speed rail line. That was a project that was sponsored by ConnDOT, and they're now underway developing, based on some of our recommendations, land uses in that area. So we expect to be back in front of you several times, myself and Francisco Gomes, and we're working in tandem. And at the end of the day, we see success as actually getting something built, and something that is complementary to Thompsonville and is in keeping with the wishes of what the community desires. So we're not looking to force something upon you. We're looking at what's possible and then narrowing it down further to what is it that you desire within what is possible. So that's our charge.
Todd, thanks. Francisco Gomes with Fitzgerald and Halliday. My team will be focused on your zoning. Specifically as related to Thompsonville. That'll be our focus. But with that said, we want to take a look at your entire zoning code for the town and to make sure that we have consistencies throughout your code. We are looking to potentially rewrite the code for Thompsonville and adjust the code in response to the work that Todd's doing, what the market analysis tells us is feasible for Thompsonville. A very important part of this process is collaborating with you as being the keepers of the code, more or less. And, it's my understanding that the town's been through this before for Thompsonville. There was zoning recommendations made a few years ago, and that the commission wasn't adequately engaged in that process. And consequently, it's gone nowhere. So for us, the definition of success in this effort.
Just one thing, we were in parts of it very thoroughly involved.
Okay, all right.
In other parts, we weren't, yes.
Okay, so we want you involved in all aspects of this work because for us, our definition of success in this effort will be adoption of a code that you think is beneficial to Enfield, and that makes it easier for the town to administer and is more friendly to the type of development that you want in your community. Right? We want this to be your code that's more representative of what Enfield needs moving forward. So we will be very focused over the next several months on working directly with you to find out are there any aspects of your zoning code that are really need to change, be updated, that are difficult to enforce, that make your job difficult, to identify ways that the code should be improved or updated, modernized, and to identify opportunities that would be favorable to the type of development that you want here in Enfield. So that's our task, to work with you in developing that. And really, we're providing the expertise and the manpower for this effort, but we're looking to you to guide us in the process. And of course, I'll be working with Roger as well in terms of guidance, but we need the commission engaged, and I'm looking forward to working with you some more.
I've discussed a little bit with Roger, and I hope you're planning for community meetings so that the downtown community or the Thompsonville community has a chance to communicate with you as they have with us. And also to have work sessions with us, which they are public, but it wouldn't be at a meeting of this type.
Yes.
Probably downstairs or wherever it's available, but it wouldn't be as formal as this.
Understood.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, as part of our scope, and really it's kind of the next phase of where we're heading, we're doing kind of the public outreach portion of our scope, which includes a phone survey of not just Thompsonville residents, not just Enfield residents, but residents within a 20-minute drive time of Thompsonville, the station. And the reason that it goes beyond Enfield is we want to hear from folks outside of Enfield in terms of their perspective of not Enfield, but specifically of Thompsonville and the train station. You know, would you be likely to move to Thompsonville? Or would you be likely to start a business in Thompsonville given, you know, new rail service? So that's one of the outreach efforts that will be starting in the next 30 days. Secondly, we will also be conducting targeted focus groups with business representatives, owners, operators of businesses, elected, appointed officials, and civic folks, in addition to a few other groups. Those will be kind of, you know, not one-on-one, but obviously they're focus groups, so upwards of 8 to 10 people per group, where we're, you know, providing them with some of the background that we've assembled, and then getting feedback, you know, trying to understand what their, you know, their hot buttons are on issues and so forth. And then finally, at the end of our you know, at the end of our scope, and this is going to be done in tandem with Francisco's firm, is that we will have an open house as well to share with the broader community what it is that is being proposed.
Well, they have an investment in it, yes.
Yep.
No, what we were told last time, and we did not have, but told by some of the planners statewide, we should have been holding charrettes around town, or particularly in downtown, in which we did not hold. And it's important that the people in the town that own the properties have input.
I just want to note that there are opportunities throughout the process that the public will be, they'll be, you know, able to come to.
Well, I think the P&Z should be involved with those hearings because if we're going to have the final say, we've got to hear from the people directly.
Absolutely, and that is built into the program.
You questions from any of the commissioners? None? Okay.
Not at this time.
Yeah, there may
See
be
more
quite a few.
information, we'll probably have some.
Now that you've been out on the television, there'll probably be questions being developed, I hope, for us and for you.
Does the commission have any suggestions with respect to particular issues that you want the consultants to take into account? Do you have any concerns, things that they should be looking at, either in terms of the marketing they're doing or the looking at the regulations themselves? I know that I have heard from the commission about density. So are there some initial concerns that you had with respect to density?
Height and vision capability of the river. I think the river was very important to the people last time. And the density down towards the river. Also, I believe there was a section, and Peter can correct me, that was it the Conservation Commission that had been set aside down on the river, and they were still concerned about developing that or not developing that?
There's been a long-standing plan to try to build a riverfront park,
That's the one. That,
and so there was a lot of discussion about, would that stay in place, and how much development can be done on the riverfront, considering the lack of access.
and I think you also have to involve Marty Levitz, who owns quite a section down there.
Yeah, about 3.5 acres.
But that's right directly.
In the middle.
Yes, it is.
It's a key parcel, and I think that was a concern on some of the hearings there on height, because the people want the vision of the river, being able to see it even though, no matter how far back they were.
Right.
But I think others will come up if we have a chance to sit at a meeting and just go around.
No, but I just think it's helpful if you start and talk about some of the issues that were there so that as we're going forward, we can, be aware of them.
I think, piggybacking on what Charlie said, I think recreational opportunities, that access to the riverfront, I think is really talking about that. That's an important piece, so.
Because the thing that I'd like to see is I'd like to see the zoning be more in conformance with the properties that are there and the kind of development that is going to be going there, rather than zone it to restrict it. Try to zone it to allow development and to allow for some flourishing of opportunity, so that it's not necessarily consistently a mixed use. But I guess I just can't get in my head how. And obviously, I think the planning and the economic opportunities are going to, if they present themselves, then things start developing. And I'm just wondering, how do we get those opportunities to start presenting themselves, recognizing the fact that there is quite a large density and they're older buildings, and the older buildings aren't easily modified to allow for additional stories to be erected, or flexibility of retail space on lower levels, and or density or higher densities of just residential use, so that it's almost like you almost have to wipe something clean and then start all over again before you get a significant amount of possible development, recognizing the constraints that exist, trying to modify existing, tired and properties, and both in the all sense of the matter, I guess. So, I think that I don't envy your task at all. I think that you have a considerable amount of weight on your shoulders, and that we're all going to be relying on you to try to pull us out of a hole, maybe, and try to get us going in the right direction.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
In addition to the roadway access, which is Main Street, if you could think about maybe another access, a roadway access to that area, I think that would be good.
Well, if you had some magic wand or pull with Washington, is to do something with the railroad underpasses, and two of them, because if they could be taken care of, it probably would be a major solution to a lot of problems.
I do want to briefly rein in expectations here, because we won't be doing a master plan or a physical plan for the area. Todd's focused on the market and economics piece, and we'll be very focused on your zoning. And even changes to your zoning is not going to imply that you get development once those changes are made. It's really still going to be market forces that need to make that happen, and time. But what we do want to make sure is that your zoning does a couple things. One, it protects you from development that you don't want. And the example of things on your riverfront that are blocking views and too dense or too high is a perfect example. Second, we need to make sure that your zoning allows for the things that you do want, right? That it's not an encumbrance upon desirable development. And third, that it's a code that's easy for you to administer, easy for residents, developers to use, understand, and navigate. So that's really what we're tasked with.
Francisco, if I could, in your scope of services, you do have that coming off of Todd's market analysis, that whatever zoning recommendations you would make, you would apply them to 5 parcels. And so, in effect, those 5 parcels are the sense of a vision, because you're going to develop with this commission a vision of what you want over there, informed by Todd's market analysis, and then whatever zoning that we come up with, you're going to test it out on 5 parcels, which is in effect active planning. So
Yeah, it is. It's just not, we're not taking a look at the transportation infrastructure. We're focused on, parcels and the implications of zoning on those particular
But,
parcels.
and I think, the other thing, and this is a concern I've expressed all along, is that, zoning is not the magic bullet. And if we do have, the restricted access over there, we can zone it all kinds of ways and it'll still sit there. So I think that, the TOD plan has to say, perhaps you got concerned when they said design another way in, but in terms of a roadway as far as a master plan. But I mean, I think we would be remiss if we didn't point out that Amtrak bridge is a problem.
Yeah.
I should note that the town is working with the state very closely on the access down there as part of the transit center. So those things that you're asking about are being thought of now.
Well, it's perhaps hard to visualize, but we did have, when I moved here, J.C. Penney was down there, Carlisle, which was a big hardware store, also was downtown. You had, of course, the theater, so there were all these attractions. Stop and Shop. First National was down there. Grants was down there, and a lot of small shops along with them. So it was the center of town, and then it moved to the shopping malls. So yes, it would be nice to see.
Let me see.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, to your marketing study, though, I've always felt that we're wasting a perfectly good river down there for marketing or for actually economic development.
That may be the draw now. Yeah.
Hopefully, we could
You
at least
mean-
look at that feature.
You mean for commercial industrial purposes or
No,
for
just-
recreational purposes?
Both.
Okay.
Both. A marina, if you
But
could
as
get the
from an
access.
economic
Yeah.
point of view,
Oh, yeah.
you could have recreation that could be investment recreation as well as
There's
just having
a-
a little beach there for six
Peter has a
people.
plan for, I guess, using the old abutments for the bridge for a fishing
For fishing pier, that's
pier.
correct.
And that would draw people down, that kind of thing. But so far,
Yeah, Well,
I said-
that's just been a personal
but
feeling.
that's,
I thought we're
let's
wasting a
do
good
that
river.
at with the ideas, if we can, please, at a workshop meeting.
When do you think we'll be back here next?
When do you think that they would be back for a workshop?
I'd like to get your availability, but we do have some flexibility in the next 2 or 3 weeks if you're available that soon. I would think we should be back within 30 days, Mr. Chairman.
Well, whenever they have something they want to sit down.
Well, I mean, because the
talk with us,
workshop,
it's-
and I just want to say one
Thing
other
that
thing
rest-
with respect to the scope of Fitzgerald and Halliday, with your notion of charrettes. A lot of their charge is to put together the public presentation materials, whether it's so that when the commission envisions it and it becomes, okay, this is what we're looking for, then that becomes something that when we go to the charrette, we're looking at, we know what it is. And the other thing with respect to the zoning code itself, that we have a lot more illustrations in the zoning code, so that it becomes more alive together. So, I'm looking forward to that whole aspect of it as well, so that the document that you have
The
at
only
the
thing
end.
we have on the agenda right now is the additional meeting on the 20,
There's the 28th. The 28th is a special meeting. We're not meeting on the 21st because it's part of Rosh Hashanah. So, and then you have a regular meeting on the 3rd. So the next meeting that, without scheduling a special one, is your regular planning meeting, which is the second Thursday of October. I don't know if that works for the gentleman.
well.
The
you
second
contact
Wednesday of
me and you
October.
can put it out on the internet to find out if the rest of the commission, because
I'm just saying, can we find out if these gentlemen are available?
Well, work that out later, please.
Oh,
I mean, we have people that are in the audience are waiting.
That would be acceptable to the commission, or?
What?
Yeah.
For our planning
Just to have them come back at your planning meeting in October?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a work planning meeting.
Yes.
Yes, but unless you have something sooner or,
If we have a date sooner and they're available, we'll try to work that out. But
It's up
it'll
to
be
them
at
when
least,
they're ready to go.
that second Thursday in October.
okay.
Great, thank you for
Yeah,
your
thank you
time.
very much, Peter. Okay, bond releases, SPR 1671. Mine were out of order, so be careful. Yours might have been when they were put in the book. This is a request for landscape bond for 1559 King Street.
And staff is not recommending 1559 King Street. At the moment, I think you have a memo from Rick Rochelle with respect to some compliance issues at the site that we've asked them to clean up.
I was missing it, so I don't know.
Yeah,
There was nothing
okay,
in the
well,
book
that,
about it, that's why.
right, there was no resolution in the packet, but I believe it was alternate Commissioner DeGray brought to our attention several months ago about the little building along the highway down there with they used for the snow plowing, and they were asked to take it down, they never did. And they put up a second building. And so we've suggested to them that before we bring up their bond release, it would be nice if they could correct the zoning violations on the site.
What's 1559?
It's it's the old Bernie's building.
Oh, okay. All right, so
So a motion to table, if you would consider that.
Has he been appointed to our commission yet?
oh, why?
Because he's supposed to be.
Who?
Tim Norris.
When, I have no idea, I've not received a letter. I just I'm in the middle of something, but it's all right. I have a question from here, and I have not been notified. Usually I get a notice from the town clerk. He's raised a question that there should have been an appointment to the commission. Are you aware of any appointment to this commission?
I'm not aware of any, no.
And I am not either. And I watched the thing. All I know is last night there was an appointment to the council. But I didn't watch the whole thing. My wife watched it. I watched something else.
That's safe.
I didn't get an email from the town clerk.
Okay. Just curious. I thought we had a
okay.
new one coming on, but
Well, what was he supposedly appointed to? Alternate? That's all. Okay. I don't know. I haven't received anything, so. Well, it's good that he's here. He can learn and get ready to go. Give him,
Who is it? The guy that's sitting in the last row?
yeah. Okay, let's go on. 1585.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we table SPR 1671.
Second.
That's what we did.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It's on the
Go ahead,
agenda.
make a
Thank you.
motion.
The motion's made. Is it seconded?
Yes.
No, it's seconded. All in favor? Okay, 1585, this is Hanush Jewelers, 118 and 122 Elm Street.
motion to approve the request for a landscape bond release in the amount of $24,750 for a retail building and with associated site work located at 118, 122 Elm Street, Enfield, map 57, lots 330 and 331. Owner J. Hanush Family, LLC.
That's Hanoush.
Hanush.
Yeah.
Do I have a
Second.
motion's made and seconded? No. Question on this, Roger, is this only for landscaping? How about anything?
Well, you released the others, and Commissioner LaFakis raised concerns about the landscaping bond, and they've since addressed it, I believe.
Been taken care of.
Okay, so the rest has been taken care of.
We got a letter here that says it has.
Motion's on the tables, all in favor? Opposed?
Anybody second?
Yeah, it did. It was seconded, I think. There's somebody. 2781, this is a partial release, site restoration, and the following all take care of the same applicant.
Reserve.
However, we take each one separately.
Yeah, and one also is, they're suggesting a change in what.
Well, yeah,
staff
but
is
it's still a bond release.
Correct.
We're taking each one separately. It's 2781. And this is a partial release, and this is for a family housing district, it's Mayfield Place. The reason for the partial release is we're retaining some because they're holding on. You want to explain it easier? Let's see. Yeah, there's a letter. It's requested a partial release in the amount of $33,224 of the original $367,000 posted for the phase of this project.
Right, on this, on 2781, the agenda talks about reserving 31,000, but the memo from Rick dated September 1st, that was what the applicant suggested in conversation with John Cabibo. They suggested retaining $38,000.
Okay, and this is to ensure the area is paved with a final course. And it's sort of insurance for us. So that's the explanation for partial release. And the total is 38,000 we're releasing,
No, you're releasing
329.
301,000.
301.
Not 301, but the total is 329. You're reducing the 329 down to 38,000.
All right.
There is a motion in the back of Rick's memo.
Okay.
I'd like to put forth a motion that for public PH 2781 Mayfield Place LLC, 75 Hockenham Boulevard, Vernon, Connecticut, 370 North Maple Street, Multifamily Housing District, map 078, lot 030, release of Phase 2 partial site restoration bond release in the amount of $329,000. Whereas the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed the request for the partial release of the Phase 2 site restoration bond in the amount of $329,000 for the property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, map 078, lot 030, owner Mayfield Place. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Planning Division staff and the responsibilities of the applicant for the site restoration bond have been fulfilled except for the final course of pavement. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Town of Enfield Engineering Department and the responsibilities of the applicant for the site restoration bond have been fulfilled except for the final course of pavement. Now therefore be it resolved, the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the partial release of the Phase 2 site restoration bond in the amount of $329,000 to Mayfield Place LLC for property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield. The amount of $38,000 is being retained.
Second.
Motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned about the figures here because they're not adding up because they're saying 329 and 38, and
Well,
that
that's why I
equals
was tempted into it.
367. So I would be more comfortable if you simply said you were reducing the Phase 2 bond to the amount of 38,000.
Moved.
So do you want to withdraw the second and change your,
Yes. Somebody second it?
no, yeah, withdraw your second? Do
So I'd
you
like to
draw-
amend
would-
it.
Do you withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
Thank you.
We start at the beginning.
Do you withdraw your motion?
Withdraw my motion.
Thank you. You want to?
Here we go again.
Rephrase.
2781 Mayfield Place LLC, 75 Hockenham Boulevard, Vernon, Connecticut, 370 North Maple Street, Multifamily Housing District. Release of Phase 2 partial site restoration bond release And whereas the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed the request for the partial release of the Phase 2 site restoration bond for the property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, Connecticut, map 078, lot 030, owner Mayfield Place. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Planning Division staff and the responsibilities of the applicant for the site restoration bond have been fulfilled except for the final course of pavement. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Town of Enfield Engineering Department and the responsibilities of the applicant for the site restoration bond have been fulfilled except for the final course of pavement. Now therefore be resolved, the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the partial release of the Phase 2 site restoration bond to Mayfield Place for property located at 370 North Maple Street. The amount of $38,000 is being retained.
Second.
Motion's made and now seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Unanimous, 700. Okay, item D. Public hearing 2781. Release of erosion and sedimentation bond in the amount of $8,040. We don't,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that, public hearing 2781 Mayfield Place LLC, 75 Hockenham Boulevard, Vernon, Connecticut, 370 North Maple Street, multifamily housing district, map 78, lot 30, release of Phase 1 erosion and sedimentation control bond in the amount of $8,040. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Planning Division staff and the responsibilities of the applicant for the erosion and sedimentary control bond have been fulfilled, and whereas the site has been inspected by the Town of Enfield Engineering Department and the responsibilities of the applicant for the erosion and sedimentation control bond have been fulfilled, now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the Phase 1 erosion and sedimentation control bond of $8,040 to Mayfield Place LLC for property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, Connecticut.
Second.
motion's made, seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous, 700. 2781, item E. This is a release of an erosion and sedimentation control bond.
For Phase 2.
Phase 2.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to read the resolution that stands for the motion on the aforementioned project. Resolution of the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning
You're making
Commission
this as a motion? Mm-hmm. Well, you said it was a resolution.
leading to the motion. It's
Oh,
okay.
all right,
This is a
okay.
motion. Yes. Resolution of the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission, PH 2781, Mayfield Place LLC, 75 Hockenham Boulevard, Vernon, Connecticut, 370 North Maple Street, multifamily housing district, map 78, lot 30. Release of Phase 2 erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $14,640.
14.
Whereas the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed the request for the release of the Phase 2 erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $14,640 for the property located at 370 North Maple Street, Connecticut, map 78, lot 30, owner Mayfield Place LLC. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Planning Division staff and the responsibilities of the applicant for the erosion and sediment control bond have been fulfilled. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Town of Enfield Engineering Department and the responsibilities of the applicant for the erosion and sediment control bond have been fulfilled. Now therefore be it resolved. The Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the Phase 2 erosion and sediment control bond of $14,640 to Mayfield Place LLC for property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, Connecticut.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous, 700. Public hearing 2781. Item F on the agenda. This is a request for landscaping.
Okay. Resolution of the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission, public hearing 2781 Mayfield Place, LLC, 75 Hockenham Boulevard, Vernon, Connecticut. 370 North Maple Street, multifamily housing district, map 078, lot 30. Release of phase 2 landscaping bond in the amount of $144,040. You want the whereases?
That's, yeah, because you do have to say it's been inspected.
Whereas the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed the request for the release of Phase 2 landscaping bond in the amount of $144,040 for the property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, Connecticut, map 78, lot 30, owner Mayfield Place LLC. Whereas the site has been inspected by the Planning Division and the responsibilities of the applicant for the landscaping bond have been fulfilled. Whereas additional landscaping measures have been taken by the property owner to increase the landscaping needs of the area. Now, therefore, be it resolved. Resolved, the Town of Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of Phase 2 landscaping bond in the amount of $144,040 to Mayfield Place LLC for property located at 370 North Maple Street, Enfield, Connecticut.
Second.
Motion's made, seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? No abstentions, unanimous. It was a lot of money we just went through. Okay, public hearing 2873, 4 Connecticut Avenue. This is a public hearing. Secretary, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate before we started this public hearing to let anyone here who's here for 53 Manning Road know that that's not going forward tonight?
Well, yeah, we can just announce that, and then I'll just,
53 Manning Road, the applicant did not post the public hearing sign, and
that
therefore...
won't even be called because of the reason it's illegal to call it, because the sign wasn't posted.
So 53 Manning Road will be taken up on the October, first week in October meeting. So anybody here for 53 Manning Road, it won't go forward tonight, and watch you have to sit there for the next public hearing.
Thank you, Roger.
Because nobody's here for it.
Those things get a little long.
Yeah.
Charles Durin,
This is here.
Elizabeth Ballard, Charles Ladd,
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis,
Here.
Mary Scott,
Here.
Virginia Higley,
Here.
Linda DeGray,
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Did you read the legal notice, did you?
No.
Okay. Too much.
The commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Concert Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2873, 4 Connecticut Avenue, application to change the zone from residential R33 to business local BL, Pride Limited Partnerships, owner applicant, map 35, lot 106, residential zone R33. Public hearing continued from August 24th, 2017, and that occurred in a Journal Enquirer on August 26th and September 17th, or September 2nd of 2017.
Silver. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Bolduc, and if you two, well, both have been back here. If you'll introduce yourselves, please, just for the record.
My name is Bob Bolduc. I'm the founder of Pride.
And I'm James Channing. I'm counsel for Pride, but I'm barred in Massachusetts. I'm not an attorney in Connecticut, so I'm just here in terms of as an employee of Pride or an agent thereof.
Both of your names are on the list, so that you're talking now. You didn't need to sign this. Okay, just for the record, Engineering Department has no comments. The Building Department had no comments. North Central District Department had no questions or comments regarding the proposed zone change. Water Pollution Control had no comments on the zone change. And the police department also had no comments for this zone change, and the fire department, no concerns relative to the zone change. That, of course, reserves their comments for anything else that happens there. Mr. Bolduc and Mr. Cheney, your presentations. Sure.
We're here tonight.
About the microphone.
You need your mic, so.
This is a test.
Well, you have to talk really right directly into that.
If this had been a real emergency,
We hope it works. We're here tonight, as you know, we've been before you several times for a proposal. Sorry?
Sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. As you know, we're here tonight.
There.
This is our, been here multiple times now, or various iterations and attempts to remodel and upgrade to Enfield Street. It was the lot at 2 Enfield Street is here on the corner, and it's non-conforming in that there's a business there and it's too small a lot. So, among other things, it was suggested that we look into purchasing the property, the adjoining property, to make our property bigger. So we did, and lo and behold, it turns out the owner of the property is willing to sell to us, and that is 4 Connecticut Avenue right here. You can see it's not a very big lot, but it solves the majority of our problem. And so we have it under option now, and it's a residential, so we're asking here for a zone change. Now, to put it into perspective, if this is the parcel and it's small, and then this becomes the new entire parcel, it is still significantly smaller than the McDonald's or the other business property next door. It's less than 1/2 still, but it will allow us to put up the small building that we would like to do. We further suggest that it won't be an encroachment upon anything else, because there will be no driveways at all on Connecticut Avenue. And as you can see, even our furthermost point, which will be mostly landscaping, is still way forward from the McDonald's side entrance. And McDonald's comes all the way back to here.
Mr. Bolduc, the rules in Connecticut are that the commission is not supposed to take into account what you want to do. You have to make a presentation based upon the zoning around the area and why you believe that the zone that you want to put into effect is appropriate.
Right.
So, you can discuss what you want to do at some other point in time, but tonight the issue is it appropriate to adjoin this residential property to your commercially zoned property?
Thank you very much. Okay, well, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jim, who's much more eloquent than I am.
Again, as Mr. Bolduc alluded to, we're discussing 4 Connecticut Avenue. Looking at this, it would be the 3rd lot in, westbound from Enfield Street. Again, it's abuts 3 parcels, which are all non-conforming, which are business locals. Again, it would be a residential 33. We're asking that it be considered to be converted to a business local zone. And the main purpose of that is, again, the intent of the POCD.
Yeah, maybe try that one. Try this one.
And again, and looking at the plan of conservation and development, the consideration for the commission as to whether or not it would be appropriate or may be considered to be appropriate to do a zone change. And would submit at this point that we do feel it would be, because one of the main intent or purpose of the plan of conservation development is obviously to further development or reuse of commercial vacant or underutilized parcels. But I think it's more importantly, as last time we were here, the commission's familiar with, there certainly are some very specific standards in terms of the regulations as to minimum size or minimum lot size, both in terms of frontage as well as setbacks as well as lot sizes. And this would accomplish or attempt to accomplish obviously making a lot less non-conforming to be closer to what the ideal situation is in the town of Enfield. In terms of specifics, currently, the way the 3 lots now that are business locals stand, they do not have an adequate amount of frontage. They do not have an adequate amount of square footage, and it would be impossible to locate a building there, even if it were allowed, that would have an appropriate front setback. If this approval were to be allowed, we could then reevaluate the potential for a less non-conforming lot. It certainly would achieve the frontage issue. It would accomplish at least over 150 foot frontage along Connecticut Avenue. It would also achieve or allow the opportunity to have a building, again, not talking about conceptual plans, but having the ability to achieve the 60-foot setback, which is required in the business local zone. And then again, it would get into specifics as to square footage. It would still be non-conforming in terms of square footage, but it would be less non-conforming. And then obviously there's still the other step as to what appropriate venue or steps could be taken. But in terms of actual numbers, we're looking at the current square footage of the 3 lots in the business local are 1,730 feet, give or take. This lot in and of itself in the residential 33 district, which does have, again, still has a 30,000 square foot minimum. Well, this lot in and of itself in Connecticut is only 6,784 square feet. So this lot in and of itself is actually non-conforming as it exists now, as a residential, non-conforming in the residential 33. But again, so we're taking, potentially taking 4 lots, looking to merge them, make them less non-conforming, and then obviously evaluate in the future, potentially in the future, as to what could occur. But again, for site specifics or the concerns, obviously typically converting a residential to a business would be appropriate buffers, or as to the intent or the reasons behind that. As the commission's well aware, there are certainly obviously some obligations that if a business were to be proposed in the business local that would need to be complied with, it would still abut a residential zone. And half that lot, half of 4 Connecticut Avenue would actually be buffer of the 35-foot minimum buffer. There's a 65-foot frontage on 4 Connecticut Avenue. So notwithstanding any potential waivers or, again, putting that aside, half of that would actually be buffer zones, which whether it be a berm or appropriate landscaping or fencing. I mean, so we're just simply considering the opportunity to allow this conversion to, again, try to comply as best we can with respect to the plan of conservation development. And again, that's utilizing a lot that is vacant or underutilized, as well as trying to achieve as best possible the minimum square footage, which the commission has made it adamantly appropriate, is certainly something they'd like to adhere to as best possible. And we can't argue with that. Again, in terms of buildings, I don't want to get specific into schematics or ideals in terms of what could happen. But again, you are looking at 4 non-conforming lots and 3 structures on those non-conforming lots that, if allowed by merge by a matter of law and Enfield zoning ordinances, could then look to make those less non-conforming as well, potentially.
This lot, I understand, straddles the state line. It's divided by the state line. The zone change that we make, does that affect the lot part that's in Massachusetts?
Well, we've struggled with that question quite a bit. It's come up with other properties along Connecticut Avenue where
They're all that way.
Yeah, because they're all that way. And I'm not sure that we've got a clear answer on that. But if you
Well, does
if
Mr.
you
Bolduc own that parcel that's that would be in Massachusetts? Does his,
no, but if you changed the, I mean, right now the zoning on the lot is in Enfield, so you're changing from residential to commercial. It's still in Enfield, but you know, all you have in the back is, well, you have 4,000 square feet, and the 4,000 square feet in the back. Actually, that's 4,000 square feet is on 2, and 4 Connecticut Avenue. It's like 1,795 square feet. I mean, that would end up being, you know, rear yard or side yard or something else. So I don't really think it's going to be, you know, a deal breaker one way
I
or the
didn't know if
other.
it was end up as part of Mr. Bolduc's property, because I think.
I mean, the real question will be when you get to the question of, do you meet minimum lot size? Do you allow them to count the property that's in Massachusetts? And I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Well, I would guess the reasonable thing would be you probably have to, because it was done before. What we run into is correcting, I would say, poor planning back whenever this was developed.
Right.
Because those lots are split all the way down by half and half. I know somebody that owns one way down, and it's the same.
If you allow the land in Massachusetts, then if you said the minimum lot size of a BL zone is 30,000 square feet, by my rough calculations the other day, they're like 300 square feet short, which, you know, I would think if they wanted to attach 300 square feet from their other property over to this property, they might get the minimum square footage, but I haven't had an opportunity to have that conversation with the applicant. And they certainly have the lot frontage on Connecticut Avenue. So the question comes down of, you know, because if you consider the Connecticut Avenue the lot frontage, they would have the lot frontage there for that development parcel. So without regard to what the development parcel looks like, you are taking, as the applicant has said, 4 non-conforming lots, and you almost get to a conforming lot.
We would, to answer your question, we would work with staff. Yes, we would end up owning it when we concluded the purchase, and 2, we would work with staff to put it together in the best way to solve this problem.
Okay, it was just curious, because I guess anytime anyone along the street comes along selling their properties, they probably run into it.
Yes, sure they do.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? All right, I'll open it to the public. Anyone in the public wishes to speak in favor or against this application? If you will, please vacate those seats and allow the public to come up. You have a chance to answer them afterwards. Your name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm not accustomed to doing this like Bob Bolduc is, and so I
You're
have
doing
things.
all
I
right.
have things that are written down, but at least I'll liven up the meeting.
It's all right, if you'll sit and just.
My
give
name
us-
is Andy Silver, like in Sterling, and it's with an IE, not with a Y, because I'm a girl. And I live in Springfield. That whole piece of property. Am I okay sitting down?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. That whole piece of property, that, with the exception of 4 Connecticut Avenue, was in my family since about 1960. And I don't know why, at this point, I should care, because I don't own the property anymore. But I do all of my business in Enfield, and I drive by there all the time, and I've taken an interest in it. After my father passed away, he had if any of you grew up here, you might remember that it was Donut Delight many years ago.
That's right.
That had very good donuts and very good coffee. So I've been told.
Yep. You're right.
Anyhow, my father passed away in '87. The property came into my hands, and over the years, it was a succession of different businesses, including
But now
Cycle
you're
Fitness.
talking, ma'am, about the building that's vacant. It was the real estate office.
That was Ken Nelson, who was on the town council here.
Yes, but this is on a zone change for number 4, and as we
Right.
stated before, we have to stay with number 4 in the
That's
zone
what
change.
I thought you were going to put me back on track. I was kind of hoping that I could throw in some other comments. 2 Connecticut Avenue was a duplex, and the only reason that I decided to sell the property is the tenants were more than I could deal with. There was
That's 2, but 4 is what we're talking about.
Right, I know, but I'm telling you, all right, we're talking about that, but I want to bring up some things, some conversations that
If it pertains to 4, fine, but if it doesn't, no.
well, it does because it pertains to Bob Bolduc.
You can't get into what anything pertains to Bob Bolduc, their personalities.
Because the woman that, all right, if you want me to cut it short after I wrote a whole,
Well,
Okay,
it's a legal public hearing, ma'am. And
well,
it can be-
my experience with him is twofold. One was an anonymous letter that he had written while I owned my property.
Ma'am, that has nothing to do with 4, please, and the zone change.
It does, because I feel that if you allow this to pass by this easily with a wave of your hand, my guess is that he did to Pam what he did to Ken
Oh, ma'am,
Nelson.
I'm sorry, you cannot get into anything of that type, not on a zone change.
My concern is that you're making it too easy for him to convert
we aren't. It's-
convert this property, because I still feel that the building, the commercial building and the house next door, which is the duplex at 2 Connecticut Avenue, there is nothing wrong with that property. He wants to take them down. He wants to take them
Ma'am,
down.
there's nothing wrong with people that wish to do that if they own it's their property. I can't allow you to continue because it is, unless you're on 4, that's it. Unless you can direct your comments to the building 4 and the change of zone.
So it's all right for him.
You can't, I'm sorry.
Okay, let me see if I.
Do you
anything
have,
else
if you wish
pertaining
to later, if this passes or doesn't pass and you wish to, there's always the courts.
There's always what?
There's always the courts. That would be the next step. But this is similar to a court, and we cannot allow any testimony that doesn't deal with what the subject is.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't know what to say, but I just feel that
Ma'am, that's it.
it's a
I'm
money
sorry.
issue
No,
with
ma'am,
him.
you cannot continue. That's all done.
Right.
I'm sorry. Anyone else would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone else would like to speak in favor or against the application? Anyone else speak in favor or against the application? The applicant wish to, any comment?
As we did receive in the office today from 2 town hall employees who apparently do live on Connecticut Avenue, gave us a yellow piece of paper and just asked us to read it into the record, so I'm just
If you'd
fulfilling.
like to read it.
So the concerns about 4 Connecticut Avenue, and of course you evaluate their concerns with respect to everything you've said tonight. 1, traffic exiting onto Connecticut Avenue, it's already difficult to get out. onto Route 5? Has there been a traffic study? 2, trucks traveling down Connecticut Avenue. 3, trash being thrown into street by patrons of McDonald's. It's already an issue. And 4, accidents when exiting. And again, these were just an anonymous.
Anonymous, we can't take them. You ask the citizens to give their name and address, I'm sorry.
Okay, so
The same as
strike
the
everything I
last
just
lady
read.
that, you'll have to strike those old things.
I would like to say one thing, 2 things. First, I've never written an anonymous letter in my life, and I don't intend to. The second is my purchase of from Mr. Nelson was at the price that he asked.
The Bolduc, I
The
don't think you
Bolduc
have to
would-
get
At
into
this point,
please.
there's been
Let's-
a lot of testimony and a lot of, I know it's been
Yeah.
lengthier and
it's fine.
there's kickoff in 18
I
minutes.
know.
But long story short, I think at this point, the question before the commission is whether or not it's in the commission or the town's best interest to consider the zone change. And I'd submit that at this point, in looking at the plan of conservation development, again, one of the main intents are to potentially utilize or reutilize parcels. But also more importantly, at this point, is actually to make parcels as conforming as possible. And this would be a request that would make it, these 4 lots, more or less non-conforming. And again, I don't think there would be a detriment to the overall plan of development, the zoning map itself. Again, we're just slightly expanding or potentially proposing to expand a local zone, which still would be significantly less than the other abutting business locals zones or parcels therein. So in looking at analyzing that, I'd be remiss not to mention, obviously, superfluous or other concerns may be appropriately addressed in the future if we are to get to the site plan or special permit review. But at this point, I'd submit and ask you to consider our request
Well, it's
to
only for the
change the zone.
zoning request, you're right.
That's
And anything else that may come up concerning the anonymous letter that was from town was trucks or traffic or anything else, or left turns or right turns, that'll come up under another hearing. This is strictly for the zone change.
So he's correct.
Is there anyone, is that, so,
We're done. The staff
Done.
did draft a resolution for you, and just note that it's in the packet. I do think a strong argument with respect to this is the fact that the parcel for Connecticut Avenue is 65 feet wide. 35 feet of it would be a buffer zone on any development that would occur on adjoining property.
well, also as a gateway project, that's been on our plans for quite a while, I think it solves some problems in that area, or it starts. For the old timers, the reason there's such a difference with McDonald's, that was a Silhouette, which was a nightclub. And then you had the garage next door, which is I don't know what they call it. And then you have the gas station, but all the lots have been different sizes. And of course, they don't have the same problems as this one, because this is split by the state line. The others were entirely within Connecticut. But you go across the street, and you just had the liquor store, or the former liquor store. So it's all part of a problem of prior zoning, which makes, I guess, the TOD thing that we just talked about important as far as you modernized or come up to present-day zoning. So, Roger, any reason to keep this open?
The only other thing I just want to, the applicant mentioned the setback in a BL zone, and you are aware that the setback in the BL zone was modified at your last meeting, and it's 35 feet.
Yeah.
So, any questions or anything? Before I
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, one other thing, just a note that on the second page of the plans, where the maps have some shading of different colors, Knox Street is spelled Know, and it should be KNOX.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I have seen different spellings elsewhere, so I don't know, you know. Street signs,
Street sign says KNOX.
okay. But I noticed they aren't always right because they've changed George Washington Road too to George Washington, to George Washington. They used to be just Washington.
The listing of the property owners is listed at Knox, KNOX, but the map itself has a W instead.
That's all
See
right.
that. Thank you.
Okay, but that's,
Typo.
okay. All right, then I'll close public hearing 2873.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add that I
Roger, we haven't, I just closed the hearing. I haven't done anything else.
Right, no, I was just telling them they could vacate, and I gave them the new standard.
Oh. Well,
Yeah, you can get it.
I mean,
We didn't vote yet.
we're trying to have a meeting.
Wait a minute.
But they don't sit there for your deliberations, they're there for the public hearing.
Well, they probably want to find out what we're doing.
No, that's what I said, but they can go sit in the audience. I didn't,
Well, I don't care where they sit.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for public hearing 2873, zone change application for Connecticut Avenue, September 7th, 2017. Whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received an application to change the zone from residential 33 to business local at 4 Connecticut Avenue, Pride Limited Partnerships LLC, owner applicant, map 35, lot 106. And whereas a public hearing was held on September 7th, 2017, and whereas the commission finds that the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals of the Plan of Conservation and Development, and whereas the commission finds that the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals of the current Enfield zoning regulations, and whereas the commission finds that the proposed zone change will not pose a significant impact on the neighbors surrounding the property, and now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2873 to change 4 Connecticut Avenue from a residential R33 zone to a business local BL zone.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add that I think that, this does solve a lot of problems in terms of allowing, a vacant lot to be developed in the appropriate manner that we think it should be developed, and that, when you actually look at the lot, and I did drive by it in terms of it's a rather small lot with the house just about on the entire confines of the width of the house, the lot, and, it would at least provide a buffer system from, the development that it will eventually occur along, Enfield Street to allow to, buffer the residential zones.
Anyone else? Okay. Again, I think that it does allow for development. I think that lot that's been used just for parking, I don't know what the development, hasn't been any development on that in years that I can recall, and probably is not developable under our regulations by itself. This does allow for Mr. Bolduc possibly, depending on other situations, but for this area to be developed, whether it's Mr. Bolduc or anyone else. Any questions then? All in favor? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think I'm kind of torn because I think it's a good idea. It puts property to use. But my concern is twofold. Most of Enfield is non-conforming. I'm R44 and my house is 3/4 of an acre and it's non-conforming. And the other thing is, while we need to take a hard look at Enfield Street and kind of help it along, especially up in that area, I keep thinking of the people on Elm Street and how it started as one little parcel got changed for business and then another and another and another, and they were getting squeezed in. So while on the surface this is a good move, I will be voting against it.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? 6-1, 6-1-0. Motion passes. Okay. Public hearing 2874 was the signs.
Mr. Chairman, just a housekeeping detail. I assume the effective date is tonight.
Yeah, well, yes.
And then it will be 15 days out
Yeah,
for the
right,
appeal period,
yes.
but it's effective
Yeah.
tonight.
I'll modify my motion to include that it's effective tonight.
And I'll second that.
All in favor of the modification? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Good night.
53 Manning Road is the one that was reported that the signs were not posted, therefore it's not a proper hearing, and so I will not open it. And that's 2870, times 4. 2876, 23 Manning Road. Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice, or either direction, whichever. you
Charles
prefer.
Durin.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here. The commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2876, 23 Manning Road, special use application to add a second driveway. Mary Collins, owner. Kevin Peretz, applicant. Map 34, Lot 12, residential R33 zone.
The applicant's here. We come forward, please, and explain to the commission what it is you're to do.
Good evening, Kevin Peretz, 23 Manning Road. I'm looking to add a second driveway on our property, and it's basically just to park our camper on. The driveway's it is off of Manning Road, but would be on the side to the back of our house. The house is kind of a different angle than all the other houses on the street. The property that we live at is the last residential property on the street before AB Container. So this driveway would be approximately 10 to 12 feet off of the property line from our property and AB Container. And again, it's just where I park my camper in the off season.
Okay, for the record, the engineering department they approved it. Building had no comments, North Central, no comments, and no comments from water pollution or the police department. And the fire department had no concerns. So the only thing that would be interested was the engineering, because I guess they are doing something to the street. I noticed that the other day. It was.
Oh, they're doing something all right.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of the perfect time. They're putting in an entire new road, so to put the curb cut in, it was probably best to do it before they put the new curbs in rather than after.
It sure would. Questions for the applicant?
It's pretty straightforward.
That's not a corner lot, correct?
No, it's not.
It's just before the row of trees or hedging or separation from the,
And how far back do you want that to go? The road or the
driveway.
driveway?
Approximately 40 feet. It's just so that I'm not parked on the grass rather than, it's not going to be paved, it's going to be gravel.
You're not paving it, it's gravel.
Correct.
I do have one thing that is, and I'm not saying you're selling your house tomorrow, but if you were to sell your house and someone else were to buy it, you're kind of leaving them with this big driveway for their backyard. I just was by there, I drove by, and I saw where your camper is
That's right.
parked and,
No, see,
and how your house is set.
That's what
and
I
it just
had,
kind
too.
of would take up pretty much most of that backyard for the next person. I'm just thinking, and, we all say we're never going to move, but it happens.
It has to be that big,
has-
because it's such a
Well,
big
excuse
camper,
me,
it has to be behind the
But
front
I
line of the house.
understand that, but I'm
That's
just
what I
saying,
wanted him to
is,
say.
this
Oh.
is not really, it's kind of,
No, I understand.
the way the house is situated, the side of the house is facing the road. So the camper is actually on the side, if you were driving, it would look like it's on the side of the house, but it basically takes up, that whole driveway would end up taking up a whole big portion of their,
You have a
But
picture of
40
it.
feet wouldn't necessarily be behind the house, or even the front of the house.
And it's not going to be paved, it's going to be gravel, so should future use or whoever moves in there could just throw topsoil over it. I'm going to connect on to the asphalt apron that would be put in as part of the road construction for that curb cut, and then there would be gravel the rest of the way. So again, later on down the road, if somebody else purchased the home and wanted to make that roadway, you would just be left, obviously,
could
with
do
that
what they wanna
3 or
do.
4 foot apron on the property or on the town's property line.
That's actually more his problem with selling the house than
Right,
with ours.
Yeah, but even disregarding that, 40 feet from the street is where you're going to park it?
Approximately. So if you saw it now, it's about 5 or 6 feet from the roadway. The camper's 31 feet long. So I'm just simple math saying
It's not
that's
beyond the front of the house. If I did that, it would be parked right in my driveway.
It's feet. This is 126 feet. If
40
this were-
feet. He's saying 40 feet.
Yeah.
He's saying the driveway,
That's his
the
existing
gravel
driveway.
driveway will be 40 feet.
This is his existing
And the
driveway.
camper's 31, so it'll be approximately where it is
He
now.
doesn't
correct?
have his
That's
other
gonna go
driveway
over here.
drawn in.
It's going right here.
It's a big camper.
All right,
says
from
it-
here to there would be, say, his 40 feet, which means that his camper would be showing from the street.
I know, but as long
It
as it's
should
past the
be
front of the
be- it
house.
should
Well, he
be over
knows he
here.
has to go back. Then what he's saying, he's got to go, as long as he understands, he's got to go behind the frontage.
Because
Do you understand that, though?
as far as
It has to be behind the frontage of your house, excuse me.
That's where he has it now.
it is behind the house. It's technically the backyard of the house, even though the house faces east.
You got a
The front door of the house is east. It's not facing Manning Road. So technically, it is
The front
behind
of the house.
the backyard of the property. Our side yard is partially our
This is
backyard.
his front yard. This is his side yard. His side yard is his front yard.
right.
The side yard is his front yard?
Yes.
Okay.
We're the oddball on the street.
It's weird.
They're trying to convince me, that's the whole thing.
Is it working?
This is prior zoning. We didn't do it.
Just as one question, in terms of on your little layout that you have, do you know what the distance is from the back of your house to the side yard, or that's there right now? In terms of, because I guess I'm just trying to get an idea of how far away from your property line your I guess camper is going to be parked, because we have a photograph right now that shows it being parked behind a house, very close to the house, so that it's as far away from your side yard as possible. So that that's the only thing that we don't want to do, is make sure that you don't encroach with your new driveway into your side yards too far.
Right.
So do you know what the distance is from the back of your house to your side yard?
Exactly, no. It's probably 26 feet, to guess.
Okay, because I guess you show. I guess there's an approximation of 10 feet from your property line to the edge of the driveway or the curb cut that you want to have.
Correct.
So that would make your, I guess your van 10 feet away from your property line or your side yard. And as long as that's allowable in our zoning regulations, I'm not that familiar with, how close we can park a. It is? All right, so never mind.
Isn't it an industrial use as well? It's not a residential neighbor.
It's an allowable use because it's a residential house, and this is his one.
No, but
and only.
I'm just saying, is my understanding is he's parking it between him and a commercial property.
Yeah, plus you can have a driveway right up to your property line. We don't regulate that, sometimes unfortunately.
Anything further for the gentleman? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against this application, then I'll close public hearing 2876. Someone, please.
I'd like to put forth a motion to approve public hearing 2876, 23 Manning Road, Zone Residential 33, map 034, lot 0012. Whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received a special permit application to allow a second driveway to accommodate an RV at 23 Manning Road, and whereas a public hearing was held on September 7th, 2017, and whereas the commission has determined that the second driveway will have no adverse impact on the surrounding property owners, now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2876 for the addition of a second driveway to accommodate an RV at 23 Manning Road, residential 333, zone, map 03, lot 0012, with the following 10 conditions of approval. And they're listed in a resolution dated September 7th, 2017.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Now, have you seen anything on the conditions?
No, I have not.
Do you have a copy of them for him? So I can ask him if he has any.
Roger, I have a copy.
Everybody's handing
See if you have any problems with them. Actually, I closed the hearing, but I didn't know he didn't have them.
Oh, well.
All right, but I'll give him a chance. You got general conditions, and the conditions prior to signing of the plans and so forth.
They're basically boilerplate.
Yeah, they are, but I don't know if he understands them. I just want him to have a copy.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Any problems? Okay. And if you're ready for the vote, all in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoy your camper.
Roger,
Enjoy your 40 feet.
going back on this one, do we have any graph paper up there we could give these people so we could get them down to scale? I don't have a scale drawing of that. and
Yeah.
I think that was a problem.
Yeah, or can we just buy a pad or something?
A scale drawing.
Well, I mean, for something like this, but we got another one coming up that doesn't have scale either. And that takes care of that. But then the last one, do we have time to extend that? Usually we have on here mandatory closing date, and there isn't any.
Which one are you referring to, sir?
53 Manning Road.
Yeah, I was going to say on 53 Manning Road, we need to accept the letter from Fay Landolina granting an extension of the time to open a public hearing.
Oh, he gave us all right, I'm sorry.
He gave us a letter extending the time until your October
Have a motion,
1st
please,
meeting in
Take
October.
up this letter that I don't have.
I make a motion that we accept the letter Roger read into the record for the extension on 53 Manning Road.
Second.
Motion's made second. All in favor? Okay.
All right, another housekeeping matter before we go on is, you remember the Kimco zoning text change? We
signs.
On the signs. We closed the public hearing, and they were waiting to see what you did on yours. I informed them that yours go into effect tomorrow, and so they gave, in an abundance of caution, they gave us a letter extending the time to make a decision till your October meeting. And so, but that's not on your agenda, so I guess we need two motions. One is to add that item to the agenda, and two, to accept their grant of an extension. If we don't do that, then they would get an approval of that
I thought I saw
amendment.
something to that.
So that's the Kimco zone change amendment that they submitted.
I move that we accept or put on the first October meeting, the Kimco.
Well, you have to put it on tonight's agenda to deal with it. You have to add that matter to tonight's agenda.
Okay. I move we add the.
Hold
item
on,
to the
hold on,
agenda.
hold on. Added as item 14B.
Okay. I move we add the Kimco item to 14B.
Second.
Okay, motion's made second. All in favor? Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
Motion, we give them an extension then, too.
Well, they know because you're going to take it up at
That'll come under when we get there,
14B.
to 14B. All right. Let's-
Getting a little
Okay,
confusing.
yeah. 5 Bacon Road. Will the secretary please read the legal notice and take the roll?
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2880, 5 Bacon Road, application for a 1,200 square foot accessory building. Edward and Pamela Smaha, owner applicant, map 80, lot 207, industrial 1I zone. Dated this 25th day of August 2017, Charles Duran, chairman. Information is available at the Enfield Planning Office, Enfield Town Hall, and that was in the Journal Enquirer, August 26, 2017, and September 2nd, 2017. Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda the Gray.
Here.
And Rich Suzak is here.
Thank you.
Okay, is the applicant present? If you'll come forward, please. And explain to the commission what it is you're doing. And see, he had nice.
Good evening. My name is Ed Smaha, 5 Bacon Road, Enfield, Connecticut, and I'm requesting permission to put up a 30 by 40 accessory building to store a camper, boat, trailer, lawn equipment, and a farm tractor.
I'm Adam Hasek from Enfield, 266 North Maple. I'm the contractor for the job. So if you guys have any questions about the building, I would answer them.
You want to, okay. You want to have questions, please, anyone?
I have a question. I know we're making changes to the regulations, and we're also have changed some of the regulations. But this is a residential use in a residential house. So how would we approve? I know it's a special use permit, but in residential zones, you can't have anything taller than 12 feet. And this is 18.8. So how do we do that? Or do we do that?
Well, you allowed, oops, sorry.
Sorry, I was asking our planner.
It's a residential use. It's in an industrial zone. So first off, it's here because they're expanding. They're intensifying a non-conforming use in an industrial zone because of the residential. The second part was that it was here because of the size of an accessory building and height. So by special permit, my understanding was that you could grant that by special permit. So you get two, it's in effect you've merged two special permits. One is to intensify a non-conforming use in the industrial zone because residential is non-conforming. And then the second is the accessory building is larger and larger in size and in height.
The reason I'm asking, and maybe the chair can ask you a follow-up question, but a few years ago, I don't know if any of you remember this, a gentleman built a garage, or it was supposed to be a barn, in front of his house. It was a pumping station, but he built it too tall, and he was in industrial district, but he had to adhere to the residential use. So while I understand the planners...
This is in the southern part of town. It was a barn. I think
Well, no, it was his
It was
business.
height.
But my point is it possible going forward to get a opinion from the legal department for future use as to if somebody lives in a house and the house sits in industrial land, do they get taxed as industrial? Are they treated as industrial, or are they treated as residential?
That would be the assessor.
On 330.7 accessory buildings, it says commercial. It says accessory buildings in commercial and industrial districts shall be no more than 12 feet in height and not cover more than 20% of the area of the required rear or side yard, unless a special permit is granted by the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission.
I did see that part. I'm just confused. And while I understand what this says, I'm having trouble justifying it as to this is a house. The house was there probably before it was industrial. And it doesn't matter if they built it tomorrow in industrial. I'm just saying perhaps to just put this to bed once and for all, because it's happened a couple times that I'm aware of. If through the chair we could ask for a legal opinion. If you have a house, you live in the house, and you use it as a residence, and it's in an industrial or a business district, does it get treated as an industrial use because taxes and everything else is different? So I would feel better.
Oh, it's treated as a...
It has nothing to do with this one. I'm just saying.
Treated as a residence. Doesn't matter, the zoning doesn't have anything to do with...
Well, you can't do that in a residential. That's what I'm saying. I'd like
He's
clarity.
not in a residential. There's a zoning.
He's a house.
How is it treated as far as the town is concerned?
Yes.
Well, taxing, it would be taxed as a house.
Well, you can't
Yeah,
have...
it's a residential.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, Charlie. Some things, it's a house, and it's a people, like you and I, and some things,
You
it's a
have
business.
to go to the assessor's office, I guess,
No,
to find
no.
out.
I just would like our town attorney to say, if a house is in an industrial or a business zone, they are allowed to adhere to the industrial and business zones. That would make me feel much...
But if I could, the Planning and Zoning Commission interprets their own regulations.
Right, and
And
that's
your
right.
regulation says they can do this if you grant them a special permit.
Right.
And if you don't want that to be done, then you could propose a change in your regulations.
Well, I'm saying you're right. We all interpret, but I'm having confusion, which would be put to bed with just a simple paragraph from the town attorney's office saying that houses in industrial districts are looked upon for zoning purposes as the district that they're in.
But that's a determination of the
us.
commission.
That's up to you.
Okay,
not-
all right, well, thank you.
That's up to you, not the town attorney, because he can't interpret our regulations.
Because the only question that I have is that, we're in a residential zone right now, but we're actually putting an industrial building into a residential zone. So
No,
that-
it's an industrial zone.
No, I mean, an industrial zone, industrial building into an industrial zone, but it's in a residential, avenue in terms of it's being utilized. So I guess my question is, are we actually starting a business here or some kind of industry that is going to be housed in this thing, or is it going to continue to be as a residential use?
Been involved with that property since the house was built in 1962, and there's no way that that's going to be turned into a business.
If somebody comes along with a business, then it'll be.
Okay, as long as, as long as it's just residential use, I
Somebody
guess
wanted to put a business there, I'm sure they'd have to come in front of you anyways, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. yes.
Right. All right. So that's all. I'm saying, all of a sudden, are we going to see a business prop up?
I understand
there?
what you're saying, and I think I answered you. I have
Right.
no intention of putting
Okay.
a business. No intention at all.
How tall is that garage?
The garage is tall, it's 18 feet 8 inches.
But that's really the roof height. And in terms of, the eave height is at 13.4. So, the average roof height would be 13.4 and 18.8, which might be somewhere around 15 feet.
Yeah. So it's exactly at 15 feet.
Yeah, which is where they measure the height of.
I mean, it's called an accessory building, but it's a garage, and you got many garages that are 18 feet high.
I said you can do that if you're in an industrial zone.
If you have an attached garage on a house, oftentimes it's
We're talking about accessory structures.
right. But I'm saying you're talking about the height of a garage.
Well,
I
I'm
mean, 18 feet is not excessive for the height of a garage.
Nope.
Any further questions?
Actually,
this is a
what we're
public hearing?
Approving is a 15-foot mean height.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Hearing none. Roger, any reason to keep this one open?
Oh, there it is.
I'll close 2880.
How could I miss that? It's right there.
Well,
Missed it completely.
I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing 2880, 5 Bacon Road, Zone Industrial 1, Map 80, Lot 207. Whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received a special permit application for a 1,200 square foot accessory building located at 5 Bacon Road. And whereas a public hearing was held on September 7th, 2017. And whereas the commission has determined that the 1,200 square foot accessory building will have no adverse impact on surrounding properties, now therefore be it resolved. Resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves public hearing 2880 for a 1,200 square foot accessory building located at 5 Bacon Road, Industrial 1 Zone, Map 80, Lot 207, with the following 14 conditions and the note.
Second.
motion's made and seconded. Any question, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's 610. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Public hearing 2882, 662 Enfield Street. Secretary, please read the legal notice and take the roll.
Okay.
Do they have to come to you, Roger, for anything now?
Yeah, they
You know
got
that, right? You have to go to them to get signed
You're all
off.
set.
They know they got the procedure. Okay, 2882. The applicant here and get prepared and
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 7th, 2017, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 28, site plan review, 6062 Enfield Street, and site plan review application for a change of use from a bank to a retail firearms store, 660 Enfield Street, LLC owner, MKT Corporation, Tom Serrard, applicant, map 31, lot 4, business local zone. Charles Duran.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing.
All right, then,
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Rich Suzak is here.
Linda DeGray will be sitting in to the excused commissioner.
The applicant has a no ability to stand in
Well,
Is that different than this?
this is what we have.
No, it's different.
It is? All right. Oh, the top part, okay. Yeah, we have these.
There's some, I don't know what you had, so I put packets together in case anything got omitted.
All right, please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is, that's new, yeah.
This is the top sheet.
Top sheet is new, there's Google Maps pictures in there, there's copies of my licenses. Tom Sherrard, President of MKT Corp. I am the representative for the gun store. We've been in business in Enfield since 2013, formerly located at 90 Enfield Street. We have moved, we're seeking permission to move to 660, 662 Enfield Street. A brief description of my business. We pretty much do everything there has to be done with firearms except have a live action range. We sell ammunition, we service firearms, we sell firearms. We offer this required safety training for exercising your right to get a permit. Approximately almost half of my customers are professional females, ranging in age, and the mean salary I believe is about $75,000. 25% of my customer base is law enforcement. 35% of my customer base is collectors of rare firearms, whose mean salary, I believe, is $175,000 a year. We also provide pistol classes, or firearm safety classes over the past, so since we've been in business, we've just shy of about 12,000 permit classes. We have a very good reputation within the industry. We have impeccable paperwork. We have yet to lose a firearm. We have yet to lose anything. We have not been involved in any criminal activity. There has been no criminal activity attached to the store. In fact, our relationships with the ATF and the Department of Public Safety are nothing but of the highest degree. We are often referred to as the example for the state of Connecticut in how to conduct firearms business. We are seeking permission and a certificate of occupancy to move into a vacant building closer to the center of town. Our business has expanded since in the 4 years that we have been around. We have ample parking. We have no impact whatsoever on traffic. We are not seeking to use a drive-through. We are not changing anything in the building at all. We are just basically changing addresses. The building was a retail establishment, banking. We are a retail establishment, general retail firearms. We're just looking to do a plug and play. I am currently a licensed firearms dealer of type 1. My license is valid. Unfortunately, it's in limbo because the town has to approve before the ATF will give me permission to once again transfer firearms. I cannot transfer in or transfer out. I have approximately $35,000 worth of firearms that are pending transfer, waiting on the town. I am also the employee distributor for Smith & Wesson Firearms. They have trusted me to be their employee distribution center. I am the only one in North Central Connecticut with that permission. They specifically or chose our business because we have such a stellar reputation. I am losing about $40,000 a month of income, and I'm spending about $8,000 a month regardless if I'm open or closed. I have my local pistol permit, or my local permit to sell pistols and revolvers already switched over from the chief of police. I have my current FFL in your packet. It does not expire until July 1st of 2019. I have also transferred my sales and use permit, which will be, the address will be changed with the state when I renew it. That's expiring in 2018. As well as my local permit, which has already been changed. The fact that the chief law enforcement officer has already transferred it shows that I am in compliance with the Department of Public Safety, because they are the ones that are approved. The only ones left are the town. Any questions?
Okay, just for house clearing, engineering, those site improvements were proposed, and so we had no problems. Building department, no comments. North Central Health District, no comments pertaining as submitted. Water pollution, no concerns. Police department, the only thing he had was proposed parking lot layout, handicap parking, loading and unloading, fire lanes, entrances and exits, and they should have something on, he wanted the layout of the parking, the handicaps parking.
Mr. Chairman, on the cover sheet that you have there, you will see that I have added, when I talked to Sergeant Mira, we do not have a loading and unloading zone. We very rarely deal with tractor trailers. As a former commercial driver, I already know that parking in a fire lane is restricted. There is plenty of room for them to offload whatever the few boxes they may have on their trailer and bring through the main entrance, which is in the parking lot, via cart. The handicap parking marks are on that layover. That's the first page of the handout that I gave you. They're clearly designated. If you look at the Google map, which is a current picture, it's clearly designated.
The only thing is, I guess they're on the, east side of the building, north?
They're on the north side of the building,
side
and
of the building in the
they're
rear.
the closest to the main entrance to the building.
Again, it's a we actually really don't ever accept non-graft, or it's not to scale. And
That
there's
is-
no north arrows, but
That's a copy of what you currently have on file of an approved building. The building was built in 1958, has been approved for use since
don't
1958.
know, I don't think the building would have been without the scale drawings, but that's neither here nor there. It's what we have now. Okay, so the paperwork we just have, is that acceptable to the police department was?
I
believe that's where they are present.
The police departments gave us a note, I think it was yesterday, that said
That's
that
what I read.
they had met with the applicant and they were satisfied. The planning department's inspection, I mean, it's not unusual if somebody is going into a site that the planning department goes out and reviews it and indicates what things need to be done. In this case, the handicap parking spaces are not up to the current standards, so they'd have to be restriped. The handicap signs are not to state standards. They would have to be replaced. And there's a dumpster currently sitting out by the street on Enfield Street. That dumpster have to be relocated and screened. So from a practical standpoint, if the gentleman agrees to restriping the handicap or disabled spaces to the state standards, putting up the appropriate signage, relocating the dumpster to the rear of the property and screening it, and put up proper signage as to entrance and exit and mark the fire lanes, I think that would be acceptable from the standpoint of we know what the site looks like.
Right.
We could, but it's your decision, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the commission.
Well,
I have a question.
I think
Charlie.
the handicap spots, if I'm not wrong, because I used to deal with the bank when it was open, is there where these are marked anyway. So all he has to do is restripe them.
The dimensions have changed in recent legislation.
So he has to restripe them.
He has to restripe them. The signage has changed. He has to put up new signs. There, in one instance, there's a sign but no striping, and another instance, there's striping and no signs.
Okay.
So those are, those are things that need to be tended to, just like any.
Possibly if you'll accept them, the commission may decide to put them in conditions.
Right. I mean, I'm saying it's
And we leave
if
them
if you're acceptable with the use and everything else, from a site plan standpoint, what you got is not what you would normally request. But then again, it is an existing building that you pretty much know what it is.
Another, just for the record, is he was on your desk that he does have a permit to sell pistols and revolvers, and it's at 660 Enfield Street, and it's from the chief, and it's dated 3/19/13.
Chairman Durman, the initial permit was issued to 90 Enfield Street. The chief law enforcement officer transferred the existing
That's what
permit.
I said, it says 660.
There you go.
And it's from the 19th day of March.
That's because the original
transfer.
one was that date.
20, wait a minute.
No, they transferred, which means they changed the address. They transferred it, so it stays under the same date.
He got his license
Oh, I'm
for
sorry,
90 Enfield
2013,
Street.
okay,
Yes, that's why.
okay.
The license was transferred on the 10th of August.
You got another year.
The local permit was
Okay,
transferred on the
you got
10th.
it, okay. Okay, questions for the applicant?
I guess I have the quick question. Is this one of the side entrances here? Is that a shared driveway?
There's a permanently deeded shared driveway with the owner of Pinellas. I did discuss this prior to signing the lease. I approached him and asked him if he had any problems with a firearms store being there. He was very appreciative of me asking. He said, as long as we get along when it comes to snowplow time, he has no issues. I showed him exactly where the snow would be dumped. When he asked me why, I said, because I'm a good neighbor.
Okay. I'm just interested to make sure of that piece that comes in.
Yeah, that was.
Shared
our
driveway
last
we had,
hearing we
yes.
had.
Yep, exactly.
So as I understand it, you're going to enter and exit through the enter through the shopping center and exit on Enfield Street.
That is correct. I am trying to do my very best not to change a single item that is already approved by planning and zoning.
Okay.
Don't get fresh.
It's hard, isn't it?
No.
Don't get fresh.
Okay. Any further questions? Oh, all right. I get, the only thing, do we have conditions here?
Do we have
I'm
conditions?
missing them, let me see.
I didn't see any.
I didn't either.
I
That's what-
I wrote some down in terms of what our comments were.
Are there, Roger?
No, we didn't draft a resolution because we only received the site plan like 2 or 3 days ago, and then we got an amended one tonight, so we weren't sure whether you were going to accept the site plan, you weren't going to accept the site plan, so we did not actually draft a resolution for you. But I think that as the secretary said, there are a number of things we would like to see on the site plan, on the site itself.
The one question I have is the presently one alarmed and directly to the police station?
Every security feature from the previous existing bank is there. I have added a few other security features. If you would like to discuss it in an executive session, I'd be glad to do so. Having a public comment, I believe, would be inappropriate and would defeat the purpose of having the security measures. I promise you that building is currently one of the most secure buildings in town.
So you are keeping what's there plus, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Well, that would be enough.
As a side note, Chairman Durman, my insurance company was ecstatic that I moved into a bank and maintained all of the security and dropped my rate by 30%.
They ought to be happy. You got a vault there now.
I have multiple vaults and multiple lockable cabinets. Mr. Duran, that's probably the most secure building in town at this point.
I hope they left you the combination.
All of the vaults work. I have every combination. I have every key. Trust me, it would be a very silly person to try to get into that building.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept site plan 1723 and with the following conditions.
Public hearing 2882.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's a site plan, but it's a public hearing,
Right,
because we have the right to have a
all
site
right.
plan as a public.
But it,
2882.
oh, isn't it 1723?
No, it was originally 1723, and at the request
okay.
of the chairman, we gave it a public
Okay,
hearing
I'm
number.
sorry. I'm looking at my legal notice.
No,
I'm
don't
sorry. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept.
I never opened this to the public, though, yet. So
Oh.
it was a little early.
All right.
Whatever.
But now, do
He's gotta read it.
you have conditions, though, that you want to add that if he has any problems with? So find
Yeah,
that out. That's what-
well, I think the conditions are going to be that the handicap spaces are going to be restriped and new signage is going to be put in. The dumpster is going to be relocated and it will be screened. The fire lanes will be designated where they are and they will be marked.
That would have already been done, but I'm waiting on your approval before I spend any more money on the building.
Okay, but you have no problems with it?
I have no problems.
Okay.
And, I think that,
And the standard conditions.
and the standard conditions that we have.
All right, then let me open it to the public. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Please come forward, ma'am. Well, I don't know if they want to come together or come separately, no? You're going to let the wife speak for you, huh?
He's a smart man. Debbie Cruzel, 21 Charnley Road. I have only had positive dealings with Tom in the gun store. It is a very inviting atmosphere, and it's encouraging a lot more people to become educated on the guns and all the rules. There's been nothing but positive that has ever come out of his store. That's it.
Thank you. Yes.
No, you're up early. Good evening. My name is Don Clark. I reside at 66 Heron Road in Enfield. I'm retired from the United States Army, and in my one of my positions, I worked with physical security, and I can tell you from my opinion of Tom's setup there, he's got just about as secure as you would find outside of a military installation. And I think that he is also one of the most honest and straightforward firearms dealers I've ever met. And I've known a few. Any questions?
Thank you.
Wouldn't touch that one.
No.
Walter Cruzel, 21 Charnley Road, also co-owner of Peerless Tool and Machine, 5 Peerless Way, as a business in town for 75 years this year, by the way.
You don't look that old.
No, I'm not that old. just a little gray. I look forward to Tom's new building. He's a model business for the town, and it's a great move. He's in a more safer facility, closer to Thompsonville, taking a building that was empty. And I said before, you guys, you could hear it decaying, and now it's being used. So it's a win-win-win for this town, and this is just approve it tonight. Get him on his way to make some money. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jeez. Oh, Tom.
I know, test.
Good evening, members of the commission. Mike Ludwig, 16 Silver Lane in Enfield. I'm here to speak in favor of the applicant. Again, I just want to echo, he is a honorable businessman who currently is a business owner in Enfield, and he's moving his business into a more secure location in Thompsonville. Again, trying to grow business in Thompsonville as we try to revitalize Thompsonville. An Enfield business owner wanting to spend and invest his or her money in a town, again, I think is a great thing. He runs his business with respect, with pride. I think he'll be a great addition to the Thompsonville Business District. So I hope you will approve his application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Goodness. Everybody.
Good evening. My name is Richard Waska. I live at 37 Newlands Road in Enfield. I just wanted to share with all of you, I have 3 granddaughters who are all teenagers and or 2021. And this is where these girls will be going to learn how to properly use firearms, to be properly trained in how to handle them and so on. And that is because that's where I went to learn how to do the same thing. I've handled long rifles, shotguns my whole life, but handguns was a new subject for me. I wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Gregory Miller. I'm not a resident of Enfield, but I've been a customer of Tom's since they opened the business 4 years ago. My name is, I live in South Windsor. A little background, I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and I have retail experience, including a year at Cabela's and working in the gun department. Tom runs a good business, honest, legal. I have never, ever seen anything shady take place in the building. I've spent a lot of time up there. It's a secure facility, as everyone has said. It's much better than former location. I think it's a plus for the town of Enfield. And I don't see anything negative about him moving to that location. If anything, it's everything positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else would to speak in favor or against?
Hi, my name's James Fish. I live at 14 Tanglewood Avenue, Enfield, Connecticut. I've been hanging around the gun shop like one of the fixtures there. I help out Tom and any of the customers comes in and help him with the classes over at the East Windsor Club. And all I can say is it's a good thing for the town. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Nobody else.
Well, they might want to go twice.
Oh. No, there's nobody else.
Okay. Roger?
The only thing is Raquel Ocasio just reminded me that on your normal conditions of approval on special permits, you often deal with hours of operation. I don't know if you want to address that
Yeah,
matter
I
or
think with the
not.
last gun shop,
Is it going to be, should we do a condition of approval and say it'll be exactly the same as what it was before?
is that a? Okay, well, that's.
Wait a minute, he's got something to say.
Well, yeah, you can't be
He
here.
doesn't want to go home at 3 o'clock. It was a
Any
bank.
comments about what they said
My
already?
current working hours are the same as they were in the previous store. I am open from 10 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. I am open from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night on Saturdays, and I am closed on 7 days to give one to God and my family.
Thank you.
Very good.
He didn't want to rebut anything that they had said about you. Okay. Any reason to keep it open, Roger?
Sure.
Okay. Then I'll close public hearing 2882.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept public hearing 2882, 660 to 662 Enfield Street, application for a change of use from a bank to a retail firearms store with no change to the exterior or interior layout of the building. 660 Enfield Street LLC, owner MKT Corporation, Tom Serrard, applicant, map 31, lot 4, business local zone. with the following conditions that we discussed. Handicap spaces shall be restriped and new signage shall be supplied. The dumpster shall be relocated to the rear of the building and screened. The fire lanes will be delineated as to where they occur, and the hours of operation shall be 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, and closed on Sunday, and with the standard conditions of our site plan reviews.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any problems with those, Mr. Sarad, with the conditions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? No abstentions, unanimous. Roger?
Just one question. Since the gentleman is anxious to get open, do we give him 30 days to get the parking lot striped and so forth, or do we require him to stripe it before he opens up?
No, give him time. He's already, as I understand, is doing what in there now, and he's got time, so, yeah. He's got to let him, whatever he's got to do, and take his 30.
Right, so we give him a conditional certificate of zoning compliance until he does it.
Yeah.
Very good, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever it takes.
I think one reason for this is it is a much better location-wise. And to me, it would be safer. You couldn't be safer than if you went to the National Guard or down to the Army base. It's
to
a
the
bank. I don't know if any other gun shop has a place in a bank.
Fort Knox, too.
That's, yeah, true. Well, I was at Fort Knox.
Good night, Tom.
Good night. Well, that cleared the house even.
I know. We
All
got
right.
this one young lady.
Yeah, I know, we should. We've been smart. Okay.
Almost cleared the house.
What is she?
Referral, Town of Enfield, acquisition of the following properties. I guess that's where we're at now, yes.
Where do we find it?
CGS 824. Well, I don't
Do
know.
all three of those in one vote?
What is she there for?
What do you?
She's there for the administrative approval of
Oh, it
pathology.
won't take long, okay.
On 14?
Let's do these. then.
Let's do that.
Now, can we do these, or do they want them separate?
Did you want to go to 14 and take
Yeah,
that up?
let's do 14, take it out of order. 14A, out of order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we skip to 14A.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right.
I believe you have a memorandum in your packet. This is, again, a professional practice going into
Be nice.
76 Plummer Drive, Unit 2. There really are no issues, but your requirements are that these come before you. So by requesting administrative approval, we save the applicant
Because the unit
expense.
is really there, right?
Huh?
I mean, I know it's a building that's there, and it's what she just occupying an office.
Right, exactly.
Well,
So she's here
Did you want
she's here to
somebody-
she's here to advertise her business on television. If you want to give her a minute.
all right,
Advertising, go ahead.
go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jody McKenna, and I live at 47 Nonotuck Street. I live in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And I have been a speech therapist for 17 years, and I am looking for your permission to move into a private practice, opening that up in the space of 76 Paloma Drive, Unit 2. It's an existing space. There's already existing ramps for handicap accessibility. There's parking spaces already, and I would be sharing those parking spaces with the current tenants. It would be myself and one part-time speech therapist, and we provide speech language services on an individual basis for children and adults that have a variety of disabilities.
How often would you be open, or what would the hours be?
So it varies because they're private clients, but I'd like to be open from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. I might not always see clients during those times. Sometimes I'll go and see them at their houses or at their schools. So 8 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then 8 to 12 on Saturdays.
At that office, but you might be doing home another time.
Right.
I didn't know if you'd meet somebody, let's say, on an occasion at the office at night, in the evening.
Not usually later than 6 o'clock. Most of the clients that I see are children, so, they're going to bed by 7 o'clock anyway, so.
Or at least they should be.
Any questions?
I was just going to say, welcome. You fill a very needed spot in town and throughout the area. This is a field that makes a difference in a child that is amazing. My son had issues when he was younger, and he had to have that. It totally changes their outlook and how they function, and it's just a great thing. So welcome to Enfield.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, so the motion would be to allow Roger to authorize through.
I'd like to put
with
forth the motion.
cooperation of- Oh, you have it, okay.
A motion to approve SPR 1724 to allow Roger to administratively approve SPR 1724 with the coordination of other departments as necessary.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations and good luck.
We get a 5-minute break?
You want one?
Yeah.
Oh. We've called for a 5-minute recess.
Is that debatable?
Well,
I'm like, no.
Got a bucket?
Nobody said you couldn't get up.
We're on TV. Let's see, where do we go next?
We're going to do, want to do B?
We got the Enfield acquisition.
You want to do Kimco B first? And then we'll go
Roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Elizabeth Ballard.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nicholas Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scutton.
Here.
Virginia Higley.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, it's been suggested since the motion was made that to go down to A, that we take up B as well. So we are on number 14B, and
Public hearing 2867, CIOP. And this was the application for a sign amendment for pylon signs, and the applicant gave us a letter to extend the time to make a decision on the application until your meeting. What day is it in October? The first Thursday in October. October 5th. So what we'd be looking for is a motion to accept the applicant's extension.
I move to accept the applicant's request for extension to the October 5th meeting.
Second.
motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? It's unanimous, good. Now, back to the main,
Referral.
let's see, it's SPR, no.
CGS 8.
It's, CGS 824 is there, are three of them. And there's one resolution, and
I think there's
Awesome.
three resolutions.
I'm
There's three.
sorry, oh, there are three.
There's three resolutions because the council takes them up as three separate items.
Oh, because I'm reading what you sent us, it's in my packet.
At the very
in the book here, see? See, it's got whereases already.
I know, that's what I mean, and it's all got three. All
But
right,
that's the Enfield Town Council resolution.
okay. Yeah, then it has them separately at the next section. All right.
The only item, and I sent out an email to you concerning the question you had raised, Mr. Chairman, about Save Our Strand,
Yep.
and that's the only other information that was not in your packet.
Well, I just didn't want them to forget it, and and at least the public knows that someone was thinking of them. If they, I don't know what it was cost per chair either, so somebody may know. So some people.
The only other thought that I had on that is that my understanding is it, and I could be wrong, but I was told by the town manager's office that the proposal would not be to keep it as a theater. So therefore, if the seats were coming out and somebody had bought a seat, they could come get it.
No, they had bought new seats.
Oh, they bought new seats.
Yeah, they
Moose?
donated towards the new seats. No, they didn't buy the old seats because I understand the old seats.
Well,
were
I
water-
tried.
The old seats were water soaked.
Working on it.
Could we make an exception and maybe give them 2 for 1?
That would be a good deal. Let them have it, yeah.
Nick's getting into the spirit of 25 to 10.
Okay. Let's get going on these, ladies and gentlemen. Here's your chance there, Mary. You could do all three or one at a time, or you could share the wealth and let somebody else do them. Let's get going.
Let her go.
I'd like to put forth a motion to accept the 824 referral, 17 North Main Street, land acquisition by the Town of Enfield, Thompsonville Village Zone. Whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received and reviewed the 824 referral for the acquisition of property located at 17 North Main Street, the former Strand Theater. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby forwards a favorable recommendation for the acquisition of property located at 17 North Main Street, the former Strand Theater, Thompsonville Village Zone, map 024, lot 0060. And whereas the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission has received and reviewed the 824 referral for the acquisition of a 2.11 acre property with frontage on Foxcroft Road that extends behind number 65, number 67, number 69, and number 71 Foxcroft Road, number 30. And
No, wait a minute, we're doing,
putting them all
which one
together.
are you reading?
I'm putting them all
Doing all
together.
three.
I'm doing them all three.
Oh,
Said he couldn't do that.
Reggie doesn't care.
Do I have to do them individually?
Well, if nobody's going to make any amendments or have any suggestions, it's fine.
Yeah.
Do
all
them
right,
all
I didn't know how
together.
the town, because you have them, so, all right, go ahead then.
Back to the 824 referral
I
for.
don't know what
for
difference.
the 2.11 acre property with frontage on Foxcroft Road that extends behind number 65, 67, and 69 and 71 Foxcroft Road, number 30 and 32 Parker Street, and 90 Laurel Street. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby forwards a favorable recommendation for the acquisition of a 2.11 acre property with frontage on Foxcroft Road that extends behind 65, 67, 69, and 71 Foxcroft Road, 30 and 32 Parker Street, and 90 Laurel Street, residential R33 zone, map 036, lot 0184. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has received and reviewed the 824 referral for the acquisition of a .26 acre parcel containing 3 buildings located at 32 Church Street. Now therefore be it resolved, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby forwards a favorable recommendation for the acquisition of a .26 acre parcel containing 3 buildings with apartments in them located at 32 Church Street, Business Local, Zone Map 027, Lot 0129.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? I have one. The only one I had a question was, and that you had told me it was landlocked, but on the map it shows an entranceway off of Montana Road.
Foxcroft.
This is Foxcroft?
Yeah.
You're
But we
right.
looked it up, Foxcroft, and apparently when this subdivision was approved once upon a time, that was open space that was to be dedicated to the town, never was. So, in effect, the town is now going to acquire it in tax foreclosure. But originally, it was slated to be dedicated to the town at the time of the subdivision, and it was never effectuated.
Yeah, because I saw the entrance and
Right.
I think when we had.
Small little entrance.
Yeah, so it does have access for the public.
You know, when I spoke to you, I really wasn't that familiar with it.
That was the only one I had a question of when I saw that.
And I don't know if you remember, Mr. Chairman, but you were the one who, maybe a year ago, sat here one night and said, "What is the town doing about 32 Church Street?"
You're right, yeah.
So the town's
Well,
doing
that's-
something.
Oh, no, it's still there, and I know. This is the same situation as we discussed on the parcel that's in front of Walgreens.
Right. But this all comes out of the town manager's top 10 blighted properties list that we worked on together. As you know, code enforcement is part of planning.
Oh, yeah.
And what we did was under the auspices of the town manager, we got the health department, the building department, the housing code people, and code enforcement and zoning in the room. And we each went down each other's top 10 list because some properties the health department did not know about and vice versa. And then in the budget this year, the town manager put money in to address what we might do about some of them. And so this is the first wave of implementing really an anti-blight effort.
Mr. Chair, I have one question. On the page that's a map of Foxcroft Road, there's green delineating the outline of the lot in question, but I noticed that the property line toward Interstate 91 extends past the brook. And then that fronts on what looks like it's Laurel Street extension. So is that the same parcel or is that a different parcel? Is the brook the property line?
Yeah, a lot of times the property lines don't line up on GIS. I think that's probably the issue.
Okay.
Good, okay. Anything further? Well, it's all talked out. All in favor? Opposed? This is unanimous. Okay. So then we're down, applicants to be received. Taking a look down below, and I mentioned it earlier, I had asked Roger to take Simon Road and put that on by itself and possibly take two that aren't going to take too long, two public hearings that like
'em off.
that would be short hearings, and put them first and get them out of the way, but not take any two big ones together or load it up with three. So, I said, we'll take it on the extra night, the 28th, and start it anyhow, because taking a look at the drawings, it's going to take us a while. And that was quite a large development, as I recall. I was here at the beginning, but I wasn't at the end, so.
So it would appear, Mr. Chairman, that the 175 North Maple, 1654 King, and 247 Shaker could be taken up at your first meeting in October, and then the Simon Road be taken up at the October 28th special meeting.
Okay, just the Simon Road then? Okay.
No.
Planning meeting, isn't it?
No, the
It's October
28th is
20.
not a planning meeting. That's the
Oh,
last.
I'm sorry, it's September 20. You want September 28th at Simon Road?
28th is Simon Road.
Yeah, okay, and then the others go to the first week in October.
And how about 2881 Shaker Road? What do we got for that month? Do you have down anything for the first meeting in October?
Well, the first meeting in October, you would be taking up the 53 Manning Road.
Well, that's enough.
Um,
Okay, then that's enough. Well, how about this 247 Shaker Road? Have we got enough time for that one?
You could put 247 Shaker and Simon Road on for the 28th special meeting in September.
Probably put that one first.
Do Shaker Road first.
How much is there to that?
Shaker Road is basically the burn down. This is where the building burned down opposite the Yankee Castings.
Right.
And they're rebuilding one portion of the building. They're building a new section of the other building, and that one's
Not as involved?
that one's not as involved. And I know that Mr. Camerata is hoping to move that before the snow flies.
Put him on with that one, but have Shaker Road first and Simon Road the second
Right.
on the agenda. And that way, we'll have just those two for that special meeting,
Okay.
because I'm sure Simon Road is going to be continued probably. So we'll be, that first October is going to be jammed again. All right.
Yeah, we scheduled Simon Road for administrative review team on the 13th, I believe. So we will have a couple of weeks before that meeting, we'll have an administrative review team and have some information. And also, the secretary tonight has asked us to get you additional information with respect to studies that may be in the files that were done originally, either for the wetland approval or the previous approval. So we will get that out to you as well. And then just a reminder, you do not have to bring your maps for that to the meeting. You can keep them at home. What we're going to try to go with coming out of the leadership meeting is make your notes, and if you want to say map 3, I have an issue with whatever. We will have a couple of maps sets of maps on the table that you can look at. This way you don't have to carry those big maps back and forth. We'll deliver them to you. You mark them up, you make your notes, you bring your notes back, and then we'll refer to the maps on the table. I hope that works out for people because I know it's been tough. And we're also, for Elizabeth, asked Raquel if we could get bigger envelopes.
Your own planning and
I
zoning
think
bags.
that's a great idea to give us a map, let
It
us
is.
look at
Yep,
it,
exactly.
make our comments and bring our comments in and
Bring your
just show it on the
comments in,
map.
and we'll have
That's
maps here
wonderful.
that you can then refer to. So on map 27, I had a question about.
Yep. Well,
Yep.
please thank everybody at your next leadership
Right.
committee for all of us.
Well, I don't know about old folks, but Ginny brought a wheeling suitcase in one meeting.
Okay, any commissioners' correspondence? Any directors or planning directors report?
Just that it's very, very busy, and I want to acknowledge the hard work of our staff. We currently have 6 pages of pending applications, and we also have a universal spreadsheet in which we log in people's requests, and we're down to a half a dozen that we've been working through. So everybody gets written comments, we still feel the need for an administrative assistant. We don't have it. Last week was very difficult because we also had the clerk typist on vacation, and I want to acknowledge the hard work. Also, in last January, we put in a request for the clerks. We have people want to know why the assistant planners are doing minutes. The clerks positions have not been filled since last January, so that's 9 months. So, that's the reason why.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.